excited to be here with all of you today for the launch of Worker Strike Back. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
So I'm going to make 2 points, two broad points. One is I'm going to explain to you why this is very significant, what we just won, the Anti-Caste ordinance. And for that, I need to give you a primer of what caste is, so let me just start there. So what is caste? It's a system of oppression where people are divided into groups in a hierarchical system, and it's birth-based, and people at the bottom of the hierarchy face severe oppression. Caste has origins which go back 2,000 years, and, but it's still pervasive in South Asia even today, right? It has material roots. In fact, Ambedkar, who's the father of the Indian Constitution and perhaps the best known anti-caste activist the world produced, he called caste as an, quote, enclosed class, unquote. Because you take class structures and you add endogamy rules, where people are not allowed to marry outside of their own caste, you get something like a caste system as it evolved over thousands of years. In many respects, the way caste operates in India today is reminiscent of the Jim Crow South. You have hate crimes like lynchings and rapes, which are unfortunately common even today. And that's why caste is a very fundamental issue. It's not like an issue on the side. It's a very fundamental issue in South Asian society to this day. It is a big factor behind other social phenomena also, like the rise of the right wing, the rise of Narendra Modi, which we just talked about in the CAA and RC laws. But it's not a phenomenon that's just over there. It's also a phenomenon that's right here in our midst. With rising immigration from South Asia, we see it right here in our midst. For example, there's data from Equality Labs that shows that 1 in 4 caste-oppressed people face physical and verbal assault. 1 in 3 face education discrimination, and 2 in 3 face workplace discrimination. I work at Microsoft, and I can tell you from my own personal experience, I've seen caste bigotry play out in Microsoft. In 2006, when the Indian government announced affirmative action programs to help caste-oppressed people, there was a bigoted reaction from many employees who were not from the caste-oppressed, who were not caste-oppressed. And they made hideous comments on email lists inside Microsoft. And there was no one who was held actually accountable for that, right? So they basically got away. So it's a phenomenon that's right here in our midst, and it's extremely significant. It's a significant fault line of South Asian society. So that together should tell you how historic this ordinance is. It's the first ordinance of its kind anywhere in the world outside South Asia. And it's a significant step in fighting caste oppression. Perhaps the best indication of how significant it is how deeply it has resonated across the world. Shama can tell you, she was just telling me that she's doing 8 interviews a day. I mean, this is a mind-boggling number of interviews that she has to do because there's so much thirst, there's so much excitement around the world on this ordinance. Another kind of semi-humorous example is that I don't think Shama has ever had a bigger test of her multilingual skills than the past couple of weeks. And she's had to explain concepts like socialism in Hindi and Marathi. I don't know if she's ever done that before. And this is true for me too. Bia set up an interview with me in Tamil, and I have to now figure out how I could explain the kind of stuff I'm telling you in Tamil. Now I want to bring it to the movement approach and how important the kind of principles behind Worker Strike Back were in winning this in this ordinance. The first example I'm going to illustrate is the nature of the coalition itself. Kind of the core group of the coalition was Socialist Alternative and a set of anti-caste groups. There itself we have a decent amount of diversity in the nature of the coalition. But beyond that, there was a broad working class support for this ordinance, spanning racial, religious, and caste lines. For instance, we had an op-ed by Reverend Jeffrey and Ram Kumar, who is a leader among the caste-oppressed community. that shows the kind of solidarity that went into this movement. We also had active support from labor unions like the Alphabet Workers Union and Muslim as well as Sikh groups. All of this reflected an understanding that all oppressions are linked and that we need, therefore the fight against all these oppressions must also be linked. And that's one of the core principles behind Workers' Strike Back.
That's right.
A second example was the nature of the fighting approach that we adopted. And I'm going to break this into 2 points, an A and a B. So everyone understood from the movement right at the beginning that we would face significant opposition from the right wing. And sure enough, we did. Perhaps the most prominent example was the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, who's known to be one of the, according to Human Rights Watch, one of the organizations responsible for the 2002 pogrom against Muslims in Gujarat, which is the state Narendra Modi is from. And he was basically the governor of that state at the time. So they were the most prominent right-wing opposition. But the movement actually, internally, there were discussions about two aspects. One was how to even react to the right-wing opposition that we knew would come. And it took a few discussions to finally come to the point where we said we need an offensive approach. We can't go on the defense when we go against the right wing. We need a united coalition, a broad coalition. That's the only way to fight them. And the second view, which also required a bunch of discussions to come to a fighting approach, was the attitude towards the Democrats. After several discussions within the movement, we ultimately recognized that we would need to fight and put pressure on the Democrats to get them to vote in support of the ordinance by building a strong movement. And that was the only way we could win. And that by itself, and so accordingly we went ahead and we had a petition where we got thousands of signatures. We had a massive email campaign. We had a phone campaign. We had a wide organizational endorsement drive. And we had lots of people coming to City Council and giving public comment and really moving, inspiring public comments. So all of that was what constituted our approach. But that by itself, was not quite enough. On the day of the final vote, one of the Democratic Council members basically cited budgetary constraints around the Office of Civil Rights to propose an amendment where she would delay the enforcement of the ordinance. Now, apparently, when it comes to fighting oppression, austerity becomes a concern. The logic of austerity kicks in, right? And budgets become a concern, and the logic of austerity kicks in. And it's important to kind of pause and reflect on that, because austerity is, as we all know, is a major weapon of class warfare. And in this instance, it was being used as a weapon of caste warfare. And an example of the linkage between these two, right? And we need a fighting approach to kind of argue against that and win. Anyway, this happened behind closed doors, and it took Shama's strong leadership, backed by the strong socialist analysis that she has, to fight this. And she basically told the council member that if they went ahead with the proposal, we would be exposing them in public as siding with the right wing.
That's right. Yeah.
Eventually, that council member buckled under the pressure and voted in favor. So a few final thoughts. I think one of the big goals for us is to scale this victory, the anti-caste victory, across the country and across the world, actually. And for that, for us to replicate the kind of success that we found in Seattle, we need to replicate the approach. And that's what Workers' Strike Back is, right? We need to kind of replicate the approach that Workers' Strike Back is advocating. And even for the specific caste issue, this is the kind of approach that we need to replicate. And so that's what we need. We need to work together. We need to work in solidarity on all these oppressions and take our victories to the world. So I'm really excited to be here. Looking forward to doing that with all of you.